About 10 days ago. Yeah, we went to Brooklyn, your stomping grounds, to watch Houston up front. Nick introduced me to the owner and everything there of Houston. So we've been watching Houston under a microscope, Nick and I. Nick used to live in Houston. I'm a huge fan of Chris Paul, so seeing him come over, what would this team be like? And to see them evolve with him, Harden, and Capella, that combination being lethal, it's nice to see Houston. They're more than just a three-point shooting team. If you look at how they break down games in the fourth quarter, you know, whether they did before, isolation, Harden's gets fouled, but now they're moving the ball more. I believe that their plan to close out games is better, and their mental makeup is better. They got tougher players. P.J. Tucker being added. It adds some, some grit to this team that we know is one of the best shooting teams. So you have to be able to match Golden State's shooting, but the grit that we know, and Golden State doesn't get a lot of credit for it, but we know they have it. I believe that they've gone out and acquired some of that.
So I want to talk about the Rockets. I'm glad we're going to talk about the Rockets right now because there are a couple things I think America just doesn't know about the Houston Rockets. They've played 29 games this year where James Harden, Chris Paul, and Clint Capella started. They are 28-1 in those 29 games. That is not a small sample size. That is not a fluke. That is a scary number. Here's another one. Basketball Reference has all-time NBA rankings as far as offensive efficiency. How good is your offense? The 2018 Houston Rockets rank #1 in the history of basketball. That is not some crazy advanced metric. It's points per 100 possessions. Houston Rockets, the best team ever. And by the way, how good is that list? Well, #2 is the '87 Lakers. #3 is last year's Warriors. #4 is the '92 Bulls. And #5 is the '88 Celtics. Those are four of the greatest teams we have ever seen.
So the metrics aren't just kind of doctored up or swayed to the current game.
Exactly
you see that
right.
The metrics cross over different generations.
Exactly right. And so you take all that. You mention the lesser-known players. CeCe mentioned P.J. Tucker. He also was going to mention Luc Richard Mbah-a-Moute, but he doesn't like saying his name. And so
we knew who you were talking about.
The two guys that do not need you to run a single play for them, go out and get some defensive stops and go out and add some grit to your team, as CeCe put it. You then add the fact that I know that everyone just likes to say, well, the Warriors, this could be the best Warriors team ever. Well, it could be, but 2/3 of the way through the season, we have no evidence of it. It is last year's Warriors team, I got it. They could have worse metrics than the previous year's team, and people were like, but they added Kevin Durant. They will be better. This is the same team as last year, just a year older, a year where they've all now won a championship, KD included, another year of a 100-game season on their bodies. And this Warriors team right now is not as good as last year's team. Maybe they will be, but they are scoring fewer points. They are allowing more points. Iguodala doesn't look as good. Livingston doesn't look as good. Draymond doesn't look as good. David West doesn't look as good.
Yes. Now, those players, especially the backup players, Draymond's a different conversation, but they look older. Livingston looks older. West looks older. Iggy, man, he needs to be at a higher level. I mean, we're not used to seeing him. Now, does he ramp it up as we get into May? Like, I don't know that, but I haven't seen it. And those are things that would bring into question, well, how good is Houston? I believe that Houston, this would be the best team that they have faced outside of the finals in the Western Conference. Even better than the OKC team that was up 3-1 that ended up losing 4-3.
So the other, I mean, you mentioned the other guys. One of the things that made the Warriors so deadly 2 years ago when they went 73-9, and also deadly last year, was when they went to that lineup of death. There was not a guy, every single guy on the court had to be guarded at the three-point line. It was all five guys. You can't defend that. Like, you just can't, especially when two of them are Steph and Clay, and they became Steph, Clay, and Durant. Well, right now, Draymond Green is shooting less than 30%. And Andre Iguodala right now is the worst three-point shooter in the league. And so when those things, again, I want to make this clear because I don't want people to say, oh, Nick, the Warriors are the favorites.
Right.
I get it. But the idea that they are they can't be beaten, I don't buy it, especially when you look at the Rockets up and down the lineup. Now, issue with the Rockets is, what's the question about James Harden? How he performs in big spots. What's the question about Chris Paul? How he performs in big spots. What's the question about
in big spots?
Right, and their head coach. How does he perform
in the
big
system?
spots? Right.
The system in the
when
playoffs.
you get into playoffs, they start breaking it down where you can't get up and down the court as much. And one thing that I know that people don't know, watch, even though Houston is in the top 10 as far as defense efficiency, watch the shooting percentage that other teams shoot against them. Teams shoot well against them, actually shoot a better percentage than Houston shoots. So people are like, well, maybe it's because of the threes. Now, Golden State, on the other hand, they shoot 51%. Teams shoot 44%. So they get a lot of layups. So if you get into a series like that, I want to watch Houston's defense, how that defense matches up head-to-head against Golden State, because the percentage that they're giving up right now is a little bit too high.
And their depth. I mean, how much does Houston, you bring up Golden State Warriors and their bench, does the depth of the Rockets have that big of an impact considering rotations get shortened in the playoffs?
Well, so I think it has an impact in this regard. They don't, you know what one of the problems with Oklahoma City was? Even the year they were up 3-1, you only had 7 guys, and really you only had 4 you trusted.
Right.
It was, even if you're going to go a short rotation, you still got to play 5.
Right.
And at one point, Roberson was not, he was still a great defender, probably not as good as he was playing this year, but his shot was broken. It never got fixed, by the way. And so you were playing 4 and 5 on offense. The Rockets, while you're not going to play 9 guys, you've got to have 7 you really trust. And I think they have 8 they really trust. And so that does allow for, if Ariza misses a couple games in a series, maybe not a series against Golden State, but you can overcome that. And we haven't even mentioned Trevor Ariza.
Right.
He's a really good player.
Yes, and we haven't mentioned the players who can get you a bucket. You talk about the rotation going from 10 to 9, 9 from 8. But outside of your superstar players, I believe outside of Chris Paul and Harden, they have 4 or 5 other guys that, because of the way they run their offense, they can get a bucket because they're going to get a shot and they will shoot it. That's where I believe that they have an advantage over the teams that have previously faced Golden State in the Western Conference playoffs.
It'll be fun to watch and how D'Antoni's system translates.
Yeah, talk to your people, man. See if we can get to one of those games. See if you can pull some.
So wait, you didn't
Yeah,
come to the Brooklyn to see the Nets?
Well, it was.
Well, we went to Brooklyn to see the bridge, and then we went to see some real basketball, too.
I listened to that.
No problem. We'll take tickets from
Shout out to Spencer Dinwiddie. We got you, Nets. We got you, Nets.
All right.
Of course they can. The thing that we've always worried about the Warriors the last 4 years was, can you match their ability to shoot threes? Or can you match their scoring, which is hard to match their scoring unless you match them from three-point line. Now, the numbers would tell us that Houston is playing at a level that we've never seen before. I'm sure Nick is going to point that out in what the story tells. But for me, I'm excited about the other players that they've added. And I believe that these players with the second unit, they provide more grit. All right? People wonder, well, are they tough enough? Mike D'Antonio team, are they tough enough when the possessions are drawn out in the playoff series? Or will they have that mental grit to be able to do that? I believe that their bench gives them that. And I believe that they're less isolation basketball in critical moments. So Chris Paul and Harden playing with the basketball with each other hasn't been a problem. They still run a lot of motion, still do a lot of pick and roll compared to isolation basketball, which Houston got into last year at the end of games and which also hurt them in the playoffs. So they're more than legitimate to be able to beat the Warriors. The thing is, are they going to play exactly like they're playing now? Because I believe that's very important. They've been a different team in the playoffs. Chris Paul, does he bring that leadership to get them over the hump, which happens to be the Golden State Warriors?
So when CC references the historical nature of what they're doing, Basketball Reference keeps a running tally of the best offenses that's per 100 possessions in NBA history. Going into this year, here were the top 4. Number 1, the 87 Lakers. Number 2, last year's Warriors. Number 3, the 92 Bulls. Number 4, the 88 Celtics. Those are 4 of the very best teams ever. The new number 1 team, the team that right now, this moment, is the best offense ever, is the 2017-2018 Houston Rockets. So that's the historical nature of what they're doing offensively.
And to speak to the historic portion, that's over 30 years. So the game has changed from defense, hand-checking, but you see that this offense still, from a historic standpoint, it matches up with something that we've never seen, or it matches up with the things that we've seen with teams that have won championships.
Right, some of the very best teams ever.
Yes.
And it's not as if it's just, okay, what are the 5 best offenses ever? The Rockets this year, the Warriors last year, the Warriors the year before.
Right.
It's not just, these are, and again, 87 Lakers, 88 Celtics, 92 Bulls are on this list. And so that's what they've been historically. Here's what they've been in the real time this season. 28-1. With their 3 best players in the starting lineup. Harden, CP3, and the guy that Kevin Durant says has an easy job, Clint Capella. 28-1 is significant,
yes, that's
especially
real.
if the team is healthy going into the postseason. Now, the reason people don't want to believe in them, though, is we say Mike D'Antoni, yeah, but the playoffs. Chris Paul, yeah, but he's never been to a conference finals. James Harden, yeah, but we've seen him in 2 separate postseasons have really ugly exits. I get all of that. I think Harden's one of the 4 best players alive. I think Chris Paul's one of the 4 best point guards of, the last 35 years. And D'Antoni, this year, his team's playing defense. Now, will they revert just to isolation ball? Will they play defense in the postseason? Do the Warriors have another gear? Because of those questions, Chris, the Warriors are still the favorite. But the Rockets absolutely can beat them.
Right. Some of those concerns, too, like how legitimate are they? Because if we just cut and paste some of the things that we say about Toronto, we just move that to the West, and we say the same thing about Houston. Oh, well, let's just wait to the playoffs. Their style will be different. We say the same thing about Toronto. Will they be able to win at home in a 7-game series? Well, we say the same thing about Toronto. So outside of Cleveland and LeBron, and outside of the narrative in Golden State, yes, this is how we normally question teams who have underperformed in the playoffs.
And I want to remind the audience one thing. The Warriors, every year in the last 3, have had a moment in the postseason where they look very vulnerable. Their first championship, they were down 2-1 to Memphis. Couldn't seem to figure it out until they decided to stop guarding Tony Allen. They were down 2-1 in the finals when LeBron's second-best player was Dellavedova. The next year, they were down 3-1 in the series. Then they ended up losing in the NBA Finals. And you might say last year, when did they look vulnerable? Man, that first game against the Spurs, until Kawhi got hurt, that series looked like, not that the Warriors were going to lose, that it was going to be a dogfight. So the Warriors, even in this amazing run, have had spots where it looks like, oh, they could get got.
They've had spots, but they've also had a number of injuries in key series that gave them a huge advantage. So when you look at them over a 3-year window, not only have they looked a little bit, they made you a little nervous in certain spots, but they were very, very fortunate with multiple injuries. Not only one team, but Chris Paul being down, other people being down. When they faced them, they didn't face either the best point guard or one of the better players out of the
They had tremendous injury luck in each of their championship years, whether it was last year with Nurkic being out and then Kawhi. And then the first year we know the injuries the Cavs had in the finals. And as Cece mentioned, all the point guards they didn't play a starting point guard in any of those series their first championship year.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.